So this morning, before I get started with this, I had somebody on YouTube question me about why I'm wearing the yellow star, and he said he agreed with everything that I said except that I'm wearing a yellow star. He said, isn't it the star of Remphan and Chian? And I told him, no, it's not. Chian, you can Google it yourself, that's Chiun, is associated with the Roman idol Saturn. You can look it up, you'll find it. And what then would be the star of Saturn? Well, the answer you will find is in the celebration of Saturnalia by the Romans. Saturnalia was a festival that lasted a couple of weeks, and I believe it ended on December the 25th, which is where the Christmas celebration comes from, Saturnalia. So if you want to look for the Saturn star, the star of Chian, it would be the Christmas star, which has 8 points, just like the star of Ishtar, the Babylonian goddess Ishtar. 8 points, not 6 points. And why am I wearing the star when it uses Phoenician Dalits as initials for the son of David rather than Hebrew Dalits? Well, the answer is this. The Christians forced Jews to wear the yellow star so that they will know the difference between the Jews and the Christians. And the Jews were discriminated against. They were not allowed to have regular occupations. They were forced into poverty with this badge. Persecution, pogroms, etc. You Christians, you did this to the Jews. And since the Jews are my people, you did it to me. Now, I will start with this video. Russia calls for UN Security Council meetings over biological activities in Ukraine. This is original on Epoch Times, but I don't have a subscription to them, and I'm not going to have a subscription to any of these news outlets. And so, since Zero Hedge does have a subscription, they just reposted it on their own site. Russia has called for a United Nations Security Council meeting to discuss allegedly U.S. military biological activities in Ukraine. Dmitry Polyansky, first Deputy Permanent Representative of Russia to the United Nations, said in a Twitter post on March 10th, Russia mission asks for a meeting of Security Council for March 11 to discuss the military biological activities of the U.S. on the territory of Ukraine. Reuters reported that diplomats have indicated the UN Security Council will convene on Friday, March 11th to discuss Moscow's claims of U.S. biological activities in Ukraine. Late on March the 9th, the United States denied Russian accusations that Washington is running labs in Ukraine geared toward developing bioweapons. Well, unfortunately for the United States, It has been long proved that the United States has been for a long time developing bioweapons including in a level 4 bioweapons lab in China, and those of you who've been paying attention, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Nothing new here. In fact, you should go to this video that I posted in December. I have it on both YouTube and BitChute. But you should go back and watch that video, and the link that I had, this right here, you can't find the information on it anymore. It's dead. It's a dead link. But guess what? I have it right here. The history of secret human experimentations, and this is in the United States of America under the auspices of the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Investigation, the same institute that attempted eugenics in the United States of America, that led to the eugenics of Nazi Germany and the Holocaust, the Shoah. United States of America. Now, does that mean that Russia is guilt-free? Russia has even more biological weapons than the United States does. And all kinds of nerve agents like Novichok that they have used against their enemies in foreign countries. Why am I addressing this? Well, because somebody on social media tried to convince me that the United States of America, the globalists, as they say, is to blame for everything that is going on here. So you're saying that Vladimir Putin is not a globalist too? Are you gonna take sides in this fight? Is that what you're going to do? Do you know what the two sides are, folks? I'll explain to you what the two sides are in just a minute. So, what do we have here? Yesterday, White House warns Russia may use chemical weapons in Ukraine. They already know it's coming. And in the last few videos, I mentioned the fifth trumpet sound, which sounds a lot like nerve agents, didn't I? Oh, you didn't watch my last two videos? Y'all better wake up. Y'all better rub that sleep out of your eyes. The Biden administration publicly warned Wednesday that Russia might seek to use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine as the White House rejected Russian claims of illegal chemical weapons development in the country it has invaded. This week, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova, without evidence, please folks, without evidence, accused Ukraine of running chemical and biological weapons labs with U.S. support. Alright, so there were numerous biological and weapons labs in the Ukraine that came from the old Soviet Union. And in 2005, you can look it up, the United States partnered with Ukraine to do something with those labs. You would have thought that, how many years has it been now? 16, 17 years, and they still haven't shut those chemical weapons and biological weapons factories down? White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki called Russia's claim preposterous and said it would be a part of an attempt by Russia to lay the groundwork for its own use of such weapons of mass destruction against Ukraine. And didn't I tell you? Revelation 9. You might say, Henry, what about the other trumpet sounds? I have said before, a case can be made. Now, I'm not saying that it is true. I'm just saying a case can be made that the other trumpet sounds have already occurred. You haven't lived in history. You didn't live during the time when Vesuvius, the great mountain burning with fire, collapsed. You didn't live during that time. But I can tell you this. Those folks back then did not live during the time when helicopters would be dropping nerve agents on people. I can tell you this, that people back in those days, in the early days, did not have did not have what appears to be the description of Russian Yars ICBM mobile missile launchers. Like it appears to be, we appear to be seeing right here. And these are three woes. And when you read I believe it's in the fourth trumpet. It says right here, after the fourth trumpet was sounded, it said, woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three messengers which are yet to sound. So the three woes are different than the first four trumpet sounds. And when you read Revelation 9, it says right here, in verse 12, one woe is past, and behold, here comes two woes more hereafter. These three woes come in very quick successions. Not over the course of many years, no. This one is over the course of 5 months. This one is over the course of an hour, a day, a month, and a year. At least these first two woes are in quick succession. Lightning speed. All right? And you see here that, as I said in the previous video, the fifth messenger sounded, and I saw a star fall from the sky unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the Abyssos. Abyssos is the Mediterranean Sea. Who has power over the Mediterranean Sea? The Romans. And I'll get into who are the Romans in just a minute. And the abyss was open, and there rose smoke out of it, the great smoke of a furnace, and sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke. This is a vision that Jonah was seeing. And there came out of the smoke locusts. Were the actual locusts? This is a vision. This is what he was seeing. Just like the vision from Pharaoh about the 7 cows and the 7 ears of wheat in one vision, and the 7 lean cows and the 7 lean ears of wheat in the second vision. Was it really about the cows and the wheat? Kinda. You can't say it wasn't about the cows and the wheat. But what was really about was 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. This is how you have to read this. And unto them was given power, like scorpions on the earth have power. So locusts, like scorpions. Locusts have the power of flight. Not very fast flight, but they do have the power of flight. Same with helicopters. They have the power of flight, but not very fast. Helicopters are a shape of a scorpion. Helicopters do not eat grass or any green thing. You see, it was commanded that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree. So clearly it was not a locust, but flew like a locust and shaped like a scorpion. A man who did not have the signet of Elohim in their foreheads. What is that signet? I'll show you. Haggai. Watch this. You think you know? You think it's Jesus? You think that's the sign? Haggai 2 and verse 20. And the word of, not the Lord, but what does that say? Jehovah came to Haggai in the 24th day of the month, and apparently that month was the 9th month on the Hebrew calendar, which would put this on Hanukkah. Say to Zerubbabel, what does Zerubbabel mean? You can see right here, begotten in Babylon, a leader of returning exiles. I want you to pay attention. Governor of Yehuda, saying, I will shake the heavens and the earth, and I will overthrow the throne of the kingdoms and destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the what? The Goi, the Gentiles. Because he says right here he's going to do anything to the Jews in this situation? No. And I will overthrow the chariots, the Merkava, the tanks, and those that ride in them, and the Sus, The Sus are not horses in this instance, but can be horses. But in this instance, birds. Warplanes, warbirds. And their riders shall come down every one by the sword of his brother. And that day says Jehovah of hosts, I will take you, Zerubbabel. What does his name mean again? Begotten in Babylon, a leader of returning Israelite exiles. My servant, the son of Shealtiel, says Jehovah, and I will make you the sign. You see, you thought you knew what the sign was. You don't, but now you didn't. Now you do. Zerubbabel is the sign. What Zerubbabel did with the Jews in his day is that sign. Now let's continue. In their foreheads, that they do not have the sign, the signet, the seal of Elohim in their foreheads, and to them it was given. So an order was given them not to kill. As I told you, when the Russian tanks entered into Ukraine, they thought they were going to go in there without a fight. You can read the news just like I do. They thought they were going to roll their tanks in. And Ukraine would capitulate just like Austria did when the Nazi tanks rolled through town. That's not what happened. That they should not kill. Now, the word kill that they would not extinguish, exterminate. Oh, well, that has a slightly different meaning now, doesn't it? But that they should be tortured. Can people die from being tortured? Absolutely. Does this mean that nobody is going to be killed, so therefore this event that's occurring right now can't be it? Wrong. See how the color of the word changed just like that when examining it? "5 months, and their torment was like a torment of a scorpion." Didn't I tell you that a scorpion sting? The scorpion's venom is a nerve agent. Didn't I tell you this? You can look it up. I've showed you this in previous videos. When he strikes a man, and in those days shall all men seek death and shall... No, it doesn't say that. Doesn't say shall all men seek death and shall not find it. That is, men. In those days, men will seek death and shall not find it. It just means many men are going to seek death and will not be able to find it. What do you mean by that? What's keeping a man from taking a pistol and blowing his brains out? Nothing. It's a general statement, folks. That doesn't mean nobody's going to die during this situation. Just means that there are many men who are going to be suffering horribly because of this nerve agent. Will seek death and not find it. Many men. Not all men, but many. When he makes a general statement when he says men, doesn't mean all men. Okay. And shall desire, and death shall flee from them. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared for battle. And on their heads, as it were, resembled a crown of gold. Does not mean that the crown that it has on the helicopter is gold. Just says resembles a king's gold crown is what it's essentially saying. And you can see this on not all war helicopters, but a lot of them. They have the old American helicopters do, and even Russian helicopters do. A radar dome. And their faces were as the faces of men, and their hair as the hair of women. That probably was the propeller, the chopper part of the helicopter, and their teeth was as the teeth of lions. And as I showed this to you before, helicopters with teeth. Now remember, this is what Jonah saw in his dream. See? All right? And their breastplates like breastplates of iron. Well, they didn't have aluminum back in those days. And the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses. That's the helicopter sound. We all know that sound very well, don't we? Running to battle. And they had tails like scorpions' tails. So do helicopters. And there were a sharp point on the tail. Not weapons. Kentron, from the Greek, just means a sharp point. And let's look at the helicopter, and what do we see? We see a point on the tail right here. He's describing it accurately. Remember, he has no vantage point, or I should say he has no point of reference in his day. So he's describing it the best he can. They had a point on their tail. And their power was to act wickedly, adikeo men for 5 months. Okay. Adikeo. Adikeo. Injure, to harm them. To do damage to them. Damage and harm. To injure. Can people die from injury? You better believe it, folks. Don't be fooled by your own imagination. Listen to what Jonah says. Don't try to add or take away from what he says. When he says men, he means men in general in those days. They had a king over him, which is the messenger of the Abyssos, the Mediterranean Sea, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue his name is Apollyon. And as I told you before, I believe it's the 15th Legion, Apollinaris, the Roman legion, in honor of the false idol Apollyon, and he essentially is Jesus Christ. These are Christians doing this to each other. Now, so where did all this start? This rift between Christians. And don't sit here and say, oh, but the Russian Orthodox are not Christians, because they'll turn around and say that the Roman Christians aren't Christians either. They're all Christians. Where did us all start? Well, let's look at the Byzantines first, and how the Vikings ended up becoming Christians. Okay? After Rus's attack on Constantinople in 860, the Byzantine Patriarch Photius sent missionaries north to convert the Rus and the Slavs to Christianity. Prince Rostislav of Moravia had requested the emperor to provide teachers to interpret the Holy Scriptures, so in 863 the brothers Cyril and Methodius were sent as missionaries due to their knowledge of the Slavonic language. The Slavs had no written language, so the brothers devised the Glagolitic alphabet, later replaced by Cyrillic, developed in the First Bulgarian Empire, and standardized the language of the Slavs, known as the Old Church Slavonic. They translated portions of the Bible. Translation would be yeah. And drafted the first Slavic civil code and other documents, and the language and the text spread throughout Slavic territories, including Kievan Rus. The mission of Cyril and Methodius served both evangelical and diplomatic purpose, spreading Byzantine cultural influence in support of the imperial foreign policy. In 867, the Patriarch announced that the Rus had accepted a bishop, and thereby becoming Byzantines themselves. And in 874, he speaks of an archbishop of the Rus, and that's how the Rus, the Kievan Rus, became Byzantine Christians. All right. Now let's go to the next article. It was after okay, I want to hold on to that right here, because I'm going to show you that they were Vikings, okay? Alright, so this is on the History Channel, early Scandinavian settlements in the East. Vikings founded Kievan Rus in the mid-9th century, but Scandinavian settlements in Eastern Europe actually date back to at least 750. This is when the pre-Viking age Scandinavians likely settled the northwestern Russian town, etc., etc. Alright? It was after 850 that Scandinavian Vikings, who were known in Eastern Europe as Varangians or Rus, established Viking rule over Slavic tribes in what came to be the Kievan Rus. Alright. So we see how Kiev and Rus started. We see how they were pagans and how the Byzantines converted them, as they say. This is how the Russians and the Ukrainians became Byzantines. This is not, folks, what you think it's about. This is about a schism between the two churches, or the two Romes. What do you mean the two Romes? Let's see. The two Romes would be the old Rome and Constantinople. Somewhere, I was researching a lot of articles, so some of them I let go of. But I'm just telling you where this all started and what the Russians, this is what you need to understand. Russia is, or Moscow is, the third Rome. Let me show you something. Third Rome refers to the doctrine that Russia, or specifically Moscow, succeeded Rome and Byzantium Rome. You know why? It's because the Byzantines were eventually conquered by the Ottoman Turks. As the ultimate center of true Christianity and the real Roman Empire. And so what Russia, under the auspices of the patriarchy in Moscow, believes that its influence, shall we say, is being taken away from the first Rome. That is what really is going on. So you will not catch me saying that one side is in the right while the other side is in the wrong. This is a fight between two of my mortal enemies. This is a fight between two of Israel's mortal enemies. And we already know that nerve agents are going to be used in some sort of a war somewhere among the Gentiles. Am I suggesting that this is the one? I suggest we wait and see. I don't think we're going to have long to find out. And if it does happen, I suggest you mark your calendar for 5 months later. So, this article is very interesting. From the Daily Mail. We're trying to prevent a world war. Psaki suggests Putin using chemical weapons is not a red line, and the U.S. won't send in troops. And killing the Polish jet deal was to stop the escalation. Here's the problem, Jen Psaki, Joe Biden, United States of America, Europe. You're trying not to get sucked into this one. You are. And I got to give you credit. You're trying very hard not to get sucked in. But you're going to get sucked in. You can't escape it. You see, what is written in 1 Thessalonians 5 and verse 3 suggests that you're going to try to escape. It says, you shall not escape. Like a woman in travail, they shall not escape. Because you see, folks, see all of this? She doubled down on President Joe Biden's stance the United States will not have boots on the ground in Ukraine. Oh, don't worry. You'll get involved in this war. Some way or another, you will. You'll get sucked in. I'm not going to get into hypotheticals, she noted, but the president's intention of sending U.S. military to fight in Ukraine against Russia has not changed. U.S. and NATO forces are taking part in Operation Saber Strike in Estonia. Featured use of Stryker armored vehicles and Stinger missiles. Allies have rushed Stingers into the hands of the Ukrainian fighters as they battle Russian invasion. Yes, the Third Rome is trying to take back its territories before the First Rome takes it all. That's what's going on. But non-NATO countries near Russia fear they could suffer invasion as well. Of course they will. You didn't think that Russia was going to stop at Georgia and Ukraine, did you? Of course not. This is Imperial Russia. This is the Third Rome, the real church, as they say. Now the Fourth Crusade. The Third Crusade, although achieved some notable military successes, had failed completely in its original objective of recapturing Jerusalem from the Muslim Sultan of Egypt and Syria, Saladin. The celebrated Sultan was now dead, and the holy city remained in Muslim hands. Now remember, back in those days, they considered Jerusalem the holy city. Listen carefully here, folks, as I go through the next few articles. The Fourth Crusade was thus called for by Pope Innocent III in August 1198. As previously, those who went to the Holy Land and fought the infidels would receive a remission of their sins, as if that man at the Vatican had any ability to forgive sins. But as an added incentive, Innocent III would now extend this benefit to those who gave the necessary money to fund a warrior to go in their stead. This is how rich people can get by without fighting. And that kind of continued all the way to the war between the states and the United States. Pope's timing was not the best, especially considering the Holy City had anyway been in Muslim hands since 1187. In the final year of the 12th century CE, all four monarchs of Europe's most powerful kingdom, England, France, and Germany and Spain, were busy with their internal affairs, and in the case of England and France, serious territorial squabbles with each other. Isn't that the great way for the church to act? Murdering and killing and stealing from each other. In April 1199 CE, the great crusader King Richard I of England, who had promised to return to the Holy Land to finish his undone work during the Third Crusade, died on campaign in France. Unlike the previous crusade, then, this was not to be the king's crusade. Still, a good number of second-tier nobles were inspired to join up and take the cross. Onward, Christian! Yeah, that one. Going off to war. Lopping off the heads of the enemies in the name of Jesus. To take up the cross as it was known, especially from northern France, where there were the counts of Champagne and I don't know how you say, I can't speak French, I'm sorry. Although the former would die before the expedition got underway, Geoffrey Villehardun would later write his conquest of Constantinople, an important record of the crusade. This goes on and on and on and on and on. But basically what happens is there was internal fighting going on with Christians. In October 1202 CE, the army was finally ready to set sail from Venice to Egypt, seen often as the soft underbelly of the enemy, or at least that was the original plan. The Venetians, being the rapacious traders that they were, insisted that their 240 ships be paid for, but the Crusaders could not meet the astonishing asking price of 85,000 silver marks, double the annual income of France at the time. Consequently, a deal was made that in return for the passage, the Crusaders would stop off at Zara on the Dalmatian coast and reconquer it for the Italians. The city having recently defected to the Hungarians, the Venetians would also provide 50 warships for the crusade at their own cost and receive half of any territory conquered. The Pope was not best pleased to hear the news that Christian Zara had been sacked on November 24th, and he promptly excommunicated the Crusaders and the Venetians. The ban was later lifted for the former. Otherwise, there would not have been much use as Crusaders, one supposes. Otherwise, it would not have been much use as Crusaders, one supposes. It is also true that many of the Crusader leaders, notably Simon of Montfort, had actually refused to attack Christian Zara, and a significant number of men had even left the crusade over the issue. Now, the objective, Constantinople. Historians continue to debate the exact reason why the Crusaders then turned on Constantinople instead of Jerusalem. Well, how do you like that? You see? Christian versus Christian. You bloodthirsty, rapacious, plunderers, pillagers, and murderers you Christians are. And why, oh why would anyone call themselves a Christian after this long, bloody, filthy history of the Christians? I don't understand it myself. But one crucial ingredient in the troublesome mix of mutual suspicion between the Western powers and Byzantium was the Republic of Venice, and one man in particular, the Doge Enrico Dandolo. So you see that the schism between the Byzantines and the Crusaders. Intent on winning Venetian domination of the trade in the East, Dandolo well remembered his undignified expulsion from Constantinople when he had served there as an ambassador. I told you this goes all the way back to the Crusades. This seemed as good an opportunity as ever to install a new sympathetic emperor, Alexio, the fourth, Angelos, whose father, Isaac II Angelos, had been deposed as emperor 7 years earlier and had been touting for Western support for some time. This would permit Venice to get several steps ahead of a longtime trade rival, the rivals Pisa and Genoa, in cornering the trade market within the Byzantine Empire. It was about money. The love for money is the root of every kind of evil. No different than today. It may then have been the goal of Dandolo and the Crusaders to merely pass through Constantinople, put a new emperor on the throne, and then to carry on to Jerusalem with their ships resupplying and their coffers refilled. Given the recent history of rebellion and takeovers in Byzantium, This was perhaps a rather simplified view of possible events. They thought it was going to be easy, just like... But anyway, I'm off on a tangent here. I need to continue. Certainly things turned out to be a whole lot more difficult for everyone involved, just like it is now. In addition to material gains for Venice, another possible motivation for targeting Constantinople is that the Pope might achieve the supremacy of the Western Church once and for all over the Eastern Church. And there, my friends, is the answer. This is about world domination, or I should say, the Christian world domination. It is about the New World Order versus the New World Order. Gotcha, didn't I? Meanwhile, the Crusader Knights would not only gain revenge on the duplicitous Byzantines for their unhelpful support of previous crusades, but also surely pick up some glory and handsome booty in the process. It may not, as some conspiracy theologians have claimed, have been so cynically planned beforehand by all parties, but in the end, it is exactly what happened, with the exception that the Fourth Crusade ended with the fall of the Byzantine capital, and Jerusalem was left for a later date. The sack of Constantinople. The Crusader army arrived outside Constantinople on June 24, 1203 CE. The force consisted of around 4,500 knights and their squires, up to 14,000 infantry, and 20 to 30,000 Venetians. The first target was the Byzantine garrison at nearby Galata on the other shore of the Golden Horn. Thus the massive chain which blocked the harbor of the Golden Horn could be lowered, and the Crusader fleet could directly attack Constantinople's sea walls if required. At the same time, siege engines were built in readiness to attack the city's formidable fortifications on the land side of the Theodosian walls. The incumbent Emperor Alexios III, Angelos, caught completely unprepared by the arrival of the Crusaders, fled the city on July 17, 2003 CE. The Venetians attacked Constantinople. The Crusaders' first move was an attempt to put their own supporters on the throne. Alexios IV Angelos, along with his father, the former Emperor Isaac Angelos, it was now thought that the Westerners realized that Alexios' promises had all been false. The pair were deeply unpopular with the Byzantines, largely thanks to sustained propaganda against them by their successor, the departed Alexios III. And the obvious threatening presence of the Crusader army camped outside the capital. What we have here, it just seems like it's not a reversal of fortune here, but it's like it's hearkening back to the past. What's happening between Russia and Ukraine right now? Russia is trying to bring Byzantium back one state at a time. We'll continue. Consequently, with the throne now effectively empty, with its support of both the people and the army, a usurper stepped in, one Alexios V, Ducas, nicknamed Murtzuphlus for his bushy eyebrows. Ducas promised to defend the city at all costs against the Crusaders, and he seized the throne after executing his predecessors, father and son, together. In January 1204 CE, Constantinople's walls were strengthened, towers were heightened, and several raids made against the Crusader camps. The Crusaders, with diplomatic avenues exhausted, their supplies dangerously low, and their ships in need of vital repairs and maintenance, had now little option but to try to take the city. They launched an all-out attack in the morning of April the 9th, but the Byzantines repelled it. Then on April 12th, the Crusaders attacked the weaker sea walls of the harbor and targeted 2 towers in particular by lashing their ships together and ramming them repeatedly. Initially, the defenders held on, but eventually the attackers forced a way through on both the sea side and the land side. The attackers smashed through the city gates, a slaughter of the defenders, and the city, some 400,000 inhabitants, followed. Citizens were raped and massacred, buildings were torched, and the churches desecrated. Tucus fled to Thrace, and 3 days of looting followed, where artwork was destroyed, precious goods were melted down, and religious relics were taken back to Europe. This is what you Christians do. Doesn't matter if you're on the western side or if it's on the eastern side. This is what you do. You pillage, rape, loot, and murder. Where is this? So here, let me show you a video. So this was a phone call that was intercepted where Russian soldiers in Ukraine were calling their loved ones. Watch carefully. You can listen, but unless you understand Russian, you can't understand, but at least it's in text here. Okay? Watch this.
Ездил. Зачем вот эти наборы? Ходили маленько по бородерничали, блядь. Нихуя надо, маленько пополнить, блядь. Вчера машину расстрелял.
What did she say? Hold on.
Да. Вчера машину расстрелял. Маленько пополнить, блядь.
She's telling him, don't go small, but go big. See that?
Машину расстрелял.
Ты?
Да.
Какое дело? Стреляй на срань, блядь, чтобы не в тебя ебать их урод, блядь, теперь. Считай, что наркоманы и нацисты ебаные. Куда?
Мародерик, который же поселок Верховной Рады.
Так.
А теперь у тебя есть 2 новых манто.
So he's telling his wife that he's got 2 mink coats for her and their daughter, I assume that's his daughter, he has an Arctic fox coat for her.
Наши есть этот самый
Да,
законный полушубок с песком. Там дом один взяли, под свой контроль. Нас, блядь, 20 человек в одном доме живет. А я здесь пил за 7 тысяч, нахуй.
So he drank $7,000, I assume, 7,000 worth of cognac that he stole. This is what you Christians do. This is your modus operandi. This is how you operate.
Такого не будет.
Не будет.
Охуеть, ебать.
And now he's mad because there's not going to be any Coca-Cola in Russia because of the sanctions. Why does anybody drink that garbage anyway? Anyway, that's another whole subject. So he's going to bring a TV worth $70,000? Is there such a thing? I did not know there was such a thing. Now she's asking, are you actually allowed to take this stuff? Why do they allow it? Because their higher ups are pillaging too.
Который я мечтал давно приняли. И 2 ямаховские колонки, как у Никитина, каждая, которая по 100 тысяч стоит. Сварочник новый, ящики там, мясорубка на дачу новая, блин.
Это только ты собрал все это?
Ну, мы с князем ездили вчера вдвоем. Вчера у нас вот тоже, короче, просто какие-то 3 типа вышли прямо на нас. Мы их задержали, раздели.
All right, hold on, wait a minute. So they took prisoners. I want you to watch, listen what he says. Forced them, the prisoners, to remove their clothes.
надежды. Ну и потом принимается решение, отпускать их или нет.
And then had to make a decision.
Потому что если их отпустить, они могут нашу позицию сдать.
Because if we let them go, they're going to know what their position is of the Russians. And of course, then they will send in artillery. So what did these Russians do?
Решает артиллерия всех. Ну и приняли решение просто в лесу.
So they decided to shoot them all in the
Потом не
forest.
говорили, что ты там это...
Ну, это еще блендер взял на 500 ватт.
Ого, это мне надо.
Я говорю, то, что...
And so the women are all in it with these Russian men. As long as they get there, pillage supplies too. Go massacre everybody. I told you for a long, long time, I told you. Over and over and over again. Many times I started off my videos with Christians. What do? They rape, pillage, and murder the Jews. Now they're raping, pillaging, and murdering each other. Just like they used to rape, pillage, and murder each other. They're murderers. Christians are killers, murderers. Everything evil in this world, this is what the Christians do. In the name of Jesus.
Я живу это, я не знаю, мы выиграли билет один из 100 тысяч.
Funny, huh? Well, it won't be funny for too long. Now, so in this particular article by Maria Christina Carrillo, paper given at the 21st International Congress of Byzantine Studies, 2006, Constantinople and the Heavenly Jerusalem. Oh. So, after having their heads bashed in for all those years trying to conquer Jerusalem, they decided that their own capital was the New Jerusalem. You see? In 446, when the passage to Jerusalem was dangerous, Saint Daniel was sent to Constantinople instead. In the life of Saint Daniel, Saint Simeon the Older himself, dressed as an old man, spoke the words quoted above, defining Constantinople as the second Jerusalem, the New Jerusalem. The 6th century text clearly expresses the value of Constantinople as a second Jerusalem, a New Jerusalem. Another great lie. Lies, 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 nothing but lies coming from Christendom. And the Catholic Church places the New Jerusalem in the eschatological role found in Revelation. Catholics also holds that the New Jerusalem already exists as a spiritual community in heaven, so it's not literal. When both in the prophet Ezekiel and in the book of Revelation talks about a New Jerusalem coming down out of the sky on Mount Zion. It has 4 walls, and on each wall 3 gates. 12 gates total, each for the 12 tribes of Israel, not 12 tribes of the church. You see, Christianity being a shedder of innocent blood all over the earth can in no way tell the truth. A bad tree cannot produce good fruit. It's impossible. So, what I'm saying here is this. You're about to witness, probably, a pretext for using chemical weapons. And if that does happen, mark your calendar. 5 months. That should be how long it takes to expect nuclear weapons to start flying. Look, folks, I am not a prophet. All I'm doing is I'm reading the scripture the best that I can. But the background of what is going on today is not what you think it is. This is a feud between Byzantium and Old Rome that started back in the Fourth Crusade, when Constantinople got trashed by the 10 kings of Europe, as they say. So, ready or not, it's coming, folks. And once bloodshed has started, and it has, the only way to stop these bloodthirsty people is by total subjugation. It's going to come, but the West isn't going to do it. Nuh-uh. It's going to be Moshiach, the king at the New Jerusalem on Mount Zion. Remember, I'll leave you with these words in Joel 2, where he leaves absolutely no doubt at the location of salvation. And that day, anyone, all who proclaim, call, or read aloud, see right here, Kara, that's what it means, the Shem, the name, Jehovah, not the Lord, but Jehovah, will slip away in Mount Zion. On Mount Zion. Because in Jerusalem, Mount Zion, shall be the escape. Just as Jehovah has said in the past. And in the survivors who Jehovah will call. So there you have it, folks. I hope you're ready. I hope you can see the handwriting on the wall. Let there not be any questions or any doubt in your mind what is going on.